Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight takes us through the week in economic analysis and future affairs. Now this week on Analysis, we turn the spotlight on lighting up Sabah, energy, equity and opportunity. Now as a quick introduction overall, Sabah's energy story is shifting from shortage to strategy. By June 2025, the state is set to hit a 22% reserve margin, powered by new infrastructure like the 100 megawatt battery energy storage system and the Kimanis gas turbine. But the real transformation, that is in the shift towards renewables. With a 40% renewable energy target by 2030, major projects like the Ulu Padas hydro plant and the vast solar potential are putting Sabah on the regional green energy map. Now add to that bold innovations in waste to energy, and Sabah isn't just building supply, it is reimagining sustainability. Still, the bigger question remains, can this transition also deliver equity, especially for rural and indigenous communities long left literally in the dark? Joining us now to unpack the path forward, Datuk Ir Abdul Nasser, CEO of the Energy Commission of Sabah, or ECOS. Datuk Nasser, a very good morning. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much.
Datuk Nasser, let's start off a little bit with looking at the basics first, shall we? Now, Sabah Power Grid, as mentioned, is expected to achieve the target of at least 25% generation reserve margin soon. So how has that been made possible through the work of not only ECOS but other collaborative agencies? Tell us a little more about that.
Okay, Tehmina, thank you for that question. Actually, that question is the most basic question has been asked by a lot of parties on it. So it is time for us to clarify on that. From the point of we have taken over the regulatory power of energy in Sabah, which is very recent.
That's right.
Only last year, January 2024. We came across a lot of rectification things that we have to do. And one of the reasons why we come across that situation is because I would call it a post-COVID recovery. Because a lot of projects, critical projects, which are supposed to be completed within a certain time frame was not able to be completed. So this is the time for us to actually rectify in a quick manner. So what we did to achieve that 25% rather quickly is to have quick fix solution through a fast-track interim solution. For example, the commissioning of rental concept of using diesel for now, because that will be one of the fastest means of getting the power as soon as possible, and extending some of the power plant that should be commissioned with the introduction of the supposed to be new power plant on stream. So what we did was to have this interim fast-track solution in place for a period only for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's just for a temporary measure, just to get us to speed in accordance to the right generation reserve margin that we want to be. So with that, it will be replaced very quickly after 2 or 3 years with a permanent solution which is more sustainable and affordable. Example, gas power plant, you have mentioned just now, and battery energy storage system as well. So we are looking at achieving that 25% within third quarter of this year, inshallah. So with that, 25% will bring us to a more comfortable level. But 25% is actually an industrial standard for reserve margin. Just to have some explanation on reserve margin.
Yes,
it's like a generation capacity, spare capacity. So like any other machine, you need to have to cater for outages, be it scheduled or unscheduled outages. So you need to have that kind of margin to ensure, because the supply and the demand need to be served 24/7.
Correct.
So you have to have that comfortable margin in order to cater for those outages. So that's why we are going for that 25% as quickly as possible. And inshallah, we'll manage to achieve that by the third quarter of this year, Tehmina.
Exactly. Now that is of course the overall structure and strategy, Datuk Nasser, but at the same time also there is a gap for roughly around 200,000 packs in Sabah who are in basically unelectrified, as we call them. We'll get into that discussion as well, but I think I'd also like to integrate it, Datuk, with looking at the fact that ECOS is also targeting 40% renewable energy by 2030. Tell us about the strategy towards achieving that, especially with regards to energy investment infrastructures, because that is going to be key.
Okay, 40% is a number that we want to achieve as a target. But actually the whole holistic view here is to ensure that we have the right energy transition roadmap for Sabah. It's similar to NETA in Malaysia. So this is the Sabah chapter. So achieving the ultimately the end goal is to have 80%, inshallah, within 70 to 80% of renewables in 2050. So before we get there, there will be in stages, achievement of certain milestone. So the first milestone, you mentioned correctly, is 40% in 2030. That is the first 5 years goal within that achievement. And to achieve that within the 5 years, it has to be a definitive plan. So that definitive plan come in the form of power development plan that has been mandated by the state government for us to go into sufficient and more permanent and also sustainable manner in generating power for Sabah. And it comes in the form of, I would say that if you categorize the significant element of generation resource there, it will be gas power plant, which is required also to ensure we have sufficient baseload demand fulfillment. And the other one would be the solar, which we have done prior to this, and we will continue doing it within the next 5 years horizon, and also hydro. So all this, if you
a good energy mix, which is sustainable according to what's available.
Exactly. So with regards to hydro and solar, there will be some intermittency. These are variable renewable energy.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have to couple that with battery energy storage system, so to make it more firm. So with a combination of these four elements, that's how we actually introduce those resources to be in place within a certain years in order to achieve the 40% of renewable energy against the whole generation mix. So that's coming from the hydro and the solar with energy storage. So that is until 2030. But we don't stop there, definitely, because the whole journey is towards energy transition by 2040 or even beyond.
Yes, 50 years ago.
Exactly. So that's where the energy transition plan as a whole comes into play, whereby we are quite optimistic in terms of gaining more ground on renewable energy, not only from solar. Of course, you can have more solar, but you need to have energy storage at the same time.
Yes, correct.
So we have to be very sensitive on cost impact of having energy storage at the back of the renewable. So we're going for a lot of hydro as well. So we can see a lot of element of hydro within post-2030 until 2040. And how we are going to achieve this is that we have done a Sabah Hydro Development Master Plan that we have completed end of last year. And it shows there's a great potential of hydro development for Sabah. It's more than 2,000 megawatt, in fact. But we have to do it in stages as well.
Of course, it has to be rolled out in
exactly,
context.
It has to be rolled out.
And from there, Datuk, may I also then go into how ECOS is also being sure that indigenous communities and those in remote areas are not only consulted, but they are also part of this overall benefits from such projects which are going to be rolled out in stages across Sabah.
You're right, because when we touch on hydro development, definitely hydro is at remote location, right? So with that remote location, it will involve a lot of rural communities. So what we do is that to ensure that first we have to do a sufficient engagement with them.
That's right.
Secondly, you have to have a buying in from them. That's very important.
An informed level of consent too. Yes.
Not only to be informed, but as well as to be involved, to partake in the development as well, because they have the local expertise and knowledge of the area. They would be also be available there to actually continue with the maintenance and operation to a certain level, or whatever they can actually partake in the full development of the hydro system. So it has to be a coexistence concept, that we have this project, a large project in this locality.
Correct.
You have to involve the local community there as well. To make
exactly, because that in that way you can also have not just ownership stakes, but long-term guarantee of land right protections as well.
And then by partaking, they will gain the benefit immediately, right?
Absolutely. Now, of course, if we could go into looking a little bit at perhaps big global players. You've got Envision, for example, top wind turbine manufacturers and developers. They're investing in Sabah, which is very encouraging news. That's exciting. Can you also share a little bit more about perhaps local players in the energy decision-making arena who are also upcoming that ECOS wants to also help to promote?
Okay, we have more of those, not only Envision, but a few other more. I think because of transparency and good governance in the state government of Sabah on energy development, it gives a lot of attraction to foreign entity to come in. And for me, it's important to have this mix of foreign expertise together with the local capability that you have to build upon. You have to start somewhere. But actually what we did was for a project of large-scale solar. Recently, we did a bidding round for the large-scale solar in Sabah only last year. What it was to ensure local participation and benefit is guaranteed. There is a mandatory requirement for that bid to actually have local content.
That's right. So basically your local procurement ecosystems, they are being enforced now.
Yeah. So in terms of equity, in terms of the content of the project cost itself, it has to have local content there. So and then we do have capable local outfit to actually conduct that to take up the challenge. And then that has been quite successful, I may say. That all the 15 awarded bidders has that local content in place as well.
So there's that local benefit mandate.
Exactly.
Perhaps if it could even be formalized in the state legislature, that would further encourage such cooperation.
True. I think that it has there is some mentioning in our enactment to ensure that we give a fair approach of all energy projects development for the local benefit as well. So actually it is there, but correctly pointed by you, it has to be in a regulated form and guidelines to ensure that. But for now, it's based on practice. So it's a testing ground. We see where we are. Then we have the capability. We will escalate that into rules.
Yes, exactly. And are definitely governed by a rules-based ecosystem. If we could briefly look at a couple of the major projects, Datuk Nasser, such as the Ulu Padas hydropower plant, the promised growth around it. How do you ensure that local ecosystems and communities are also being highlighted to be protected rather than just being a part of the overall ecosystem?
Okay, that's a good question. Like any other project, like any other project, major project involving the environment, you know, it's a compulsory requirement to have a comprehensive environmental and social impact assessment. That's definitely in. I mean, that's given. But on top of that, for Ulu Padas, there is also we did something additional to that.
Right.
To ensure that we engage, like I mentioned just now, the community early. We ensure there are objection and issue related to compensation and all that has been catered early. So we get the site ready before even we want to start the project. So that's very important. And as I mentioned as well, in terms of it's a storage dam project. So in a storage dam project, one of the requirements to ensure the environmental of the river condition is to have a minimum environmental flow. For example, you can't just have a dam project and stop the river flowing. And
progress without displacements is possible. I think this is what has been proven.
And then that's a very interesting point that you made there, because the reason why we choose that site of Padas is basically because there is doesn't involve any relocation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the conversation so far, Datuk Nasser. We do take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Niaga Spotlight, focusing on Sabah and energy equity. Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight, still with me, Tehmina Kaoosji, and today it's a very inclusive discussion on looking at Sabah and energy equity. Datuk Nasser, so good, jumping right back into the conversation. Now, waste to energy sounds like a wonderful, bold and timely innovation, given that, of course, we want to be environmentally conscious. Could this be the key to powering interior parts of Sabah more sustainably? And how soon does ECOS hope to expect and see pilot projects happening on the ground, waste to energy?
Okay. Waste to energy in Sabah context will be mainly the significant part of waste to energy for Sabah will be the bioenergy, which is the biomass, biogas. Those are generated waste from palm oil industry, which Sabah has a lot of. So I think the hidden, I would call it a hidden gem, which is there's a potential about more than 800 megawatt, which is for Sabah is quite large.
Very valuable.
Very valuable as well. And also it will be also complementing a circular economy as well. And then to ensure that we have sufficient power available at the east coast of Sabah, because most of the bioenergy potential will be in the east coast of Sabah, where you don't have natural gas availability there. So that means there's a lot of multiple benefit that we should focus and insist on happening. So the thing about that, there are some challenges on that that we're trying to overcome. But what happened recently is that a game changer for me, that the state government has had this policy implemented, that all biomass, there's some restriction in terms of exporting biomass outside.
Right. So it has to stay within the state borders.
It has to stay within. So that means we have a hopefully sufficient amount to make things happen for bioenergy in Sabah, because that was the first problem that we faced, which is not insufficient biomass waste.
For it to be industrially viable.
So that's one. And secondly, in terms of cost, to make sure, and also in terms of logistics, it's something we're working on. And then we are progressing on that. What the government also did was to appoint an aggregator. Local aggregator is a GLC to ensure that the transportation, the collection center, and the pre-treatment of the biomass is done in equitable and according to the requirement that we need. So I think we are going there. It's a work in progress, I would say.
And also ensuring that its waste to energy is not only urban-centric, but also perhaps involves local councils, maybe women-led cooperatives, which are very common when it comes to social enterprises in Sabah.
So that's very important also, because the biomass potential is actually at the rural area. So at the East Coast and rural area. So that's where it's important. But I just want to add one more.
Yes, please.
How important is this bioenergy in terms of environmental impact? Because what is it actually to the environment is that the waste from the palm oil, the biomass, will emits methane. And we know that methane is quite harmful greenhouse gases. So actually it's a killing two birds in one stone, while having energy, renewable, as well as demethanation agenda for Sabah, which is complementing the nation.
In a circular economy model as well.
So that's basically my take on waste to energy. The significant part will be on the bioenergy part.
Absolutely. Now, moving along to discussion, Datuk Nasser, Sabah is also building a new gas power plants in Kimanis, while also aiming for more renewables at the same time. So let's talk about ECOS's perspective on this fossil fuel investment within Malaysia's broader scope, larger climate commitments.
Okay. So I think we have to have a balanced approach. I mentioned just now, the energy transition must be done in a just manner. We have to take into account the security of supply, the reliability of it, the affordability of it, and also, of course, at the same time, we also in tune with the sustainability to the environment. So that's why it's progressively we are increasing the renewable energy while trying to saturate the gas, fossil fuel. We don't have any coal plant in Sabah. We only have fossil fuel in terms of gas. So for us, gas is a transitional fuel. Like any
Wonderful. Yes, the transitional approach rather than entrenching it as part of the energy mix, right?
Can't be done overnight.
True.
And we have to take into account all the balanced approaches. Right? So it is, it's true that we have some new gas power plant online, but we also ensure that the usage of gas is up to the minimum. And why we do that? Not only because of the environmental issue, but also on the economic development issue for Sabah. So the natural gas, all this while has been used mainly for power. But now we are seeing a lot of interest of industrialization uptake in Sabah. So a lot of this needs the natural gas to ensure that industrialization of Sabah also being taken care of. So that's our focus as well.
Exactly.
Power as well as industrialization agenda for Sabah.
Very true, because I think it's also about Sabah's future energy economy being more resilient and not locking all the assets in fossil fuels alone.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So definitely a lot to ponder about, but thank you for that overall introduction. Now, we know, of course, energy projects create jobs, Datuk Nasser, but are they reaching the right people in Sabah insofar? And how does ECOS hope to ensure that there is long-term skilled employment, particularly for local youth, beyond the mostly short-term contracts that are currently available?
Okay, I think if you read through our Sabah Energy Roadmap and Master Plan 2040, which we crafted back in 2023, before we were even the regulator for power at the time. So in the Master Plan, one of the important enabler is the human resource capacity development. So understanding that, there's a lot of focus on that as well, to ensure that we have sufficient manpower and expertise to actually sustain the plan that we have developed. One of the aspects that we did in terms of intervention, something extra we did, was to engage an institute, Latihan Technical Institute, ILTP in Sabah, owned by state government, and become our, we call it Tibet Angkat lah. We basically we nurture them to make sure they have sufficiency in terms of the module with regards to the power and gas.
Locally suited TVET,
Locally
yes.
suited, and then also at the same time facilitate them to get the right infra. And also to ensure the most important aspect is also ensure employability at the end of the day.
Yes.
Where they are basically the one who fill all the gaps. So Sabah is actually developing that. At the same time, we have to get from outside to ensure we have sufficient human capital capability, but we have a program to actually build up our indigenous local expertise as well. So I think that plays a very major role in terms of sustaining what we have developed.
Yes, exactly. Could we perhaps dig a little bit deeper into that? Now, when it also comes to ensuring equitable job access, one part of it is looking at technical school graduates. Are there any also efforts perhaps to upskill and ensure that Sabahan women are also part of these programs?
Definitely. I mean, a lot of the ILTP students that I went, quite a lot of them also are female.
Right, okay.
And then even in ECOS, I think we have more than 30% women actually. So, I mean, this is something that we have to look into in terms of equitability for all across spectrum and factors of equitability, gender as well as race and all that. So I think it's important because we have this mixture and this diversity.
Exactly, and that also helps to ensure that income development is across all boards. Can we move into perhaps what kind of incentives are existing or perhaps ECOS would like to propose in the near future, especially for companies to retain local hires beyond just the construction phase of projects?
Okay, what we did was as a regulator, I mean, we can always encourage, involvement of for the companies to engage local employees. But also we were looking at making it probably a regulation to say that when there's a contractor to renew their license and all that, they must employ local Sabahan because actually it's good for them because the cost, imagine the cost of employing local compared to getting it from
exactly.
outside.
Cheaper, importing right? Workers.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's one. Second is the knowledge, local knowledge of the local employee there is better. And also I would say that it's aligned to our agenda as well to develop local expertise. So I mean we're working along and collaborating together with the industry players as well in the energy sector.
Exactly.
To ensure that happen.
And I think hopefully because we're not just looking at Sabah alone, but I think we're also looking at transitioning into the green energy economy across Southeast Asia.
Exactly.
So that could mean in the near future perhaps skilled Sabahans who have been trained in maybe technicians, coders, solar installers. We will actually be the ones exporting them somewhere, right?
Yep.
And perhaps to round out the entire discussion, Datuk Nasser, let's talk about how Sabah could be a model for a fair, sustainable energy transition in Southeast Asia, and of course one that benefits naturally Sabahans first.
Definitely. I think one of the significant exercise that will bring us towards Southeast Asia arena will be the ASEAN Power Grid. Why I say that? Because the geographical location of Sabah is quite strategic.
Very strategic,
Very
yes.
strategic. We are actually bordering with Indonesia and Philippines and Brunei as well, not too far. And I think the other project that actually, as a starting point to make that happen, is the interconnection that we are going soon to have and commission with Sarawak. Because Sarawak is also have excess energy that they can produce and probably selling abroad. So Sabah having the right infrastructure will be, poised to be central in that agenda as well for Philippines or even Kalimantan. We heard the PMX mentioning about that recently, about the APG.
Yes, that's right.
Malaysia would like to lead in terms of, making that to happen. The thing about APG as well, besides having a resilient network system, it's also giving more avenue for expanding renewable energy market. Because renewable energy, I mentioned, it's intermittent. Probably you have it during a certain time. The other country might don't have it at that particular point in time. This is
That's
where
right.
you
It depends on who is
complement
catching up
each other. Exactly. And you know, renewable energy is it's a waste if you don't actually use it, because it's always there, it's in excess. So I think this is also one of the impetus.
And perhaps some of ECOS's thoughts around tariff equity and ensuring that tariff rates in particular, regardless of overall national restructuring, it is definitely kept affordable for rural people in Sabah.
Exactly. So I'm thinking rural and both urban as well, because when you focus on renewable energy, there's no element of subsidy there. That's one thing. And then it's not fluctuate with the geopolitical situation that we are having now. And then when you talk about renewable energy, it's basically also adapting that concept of microgrid. Renewable means sustainable means community operation and maintenance led for the rural folks as well. So we are actually doing it in tandem for both urban and rural. So I think inshallah, I think we are basically on track. Because the plan actually is already laid down, and then the state government also committed. We have intervention committee as well being commissioned to ensure that this happens.
Absolutely, and I think overall, when it comes to the energy landscape in Sabah, currently Sabah has the very unique opportunity to perhaps pilot Southeast Asia's first state-level just energy transition framework.
Exactly, yeah.
And we wish you and your team at the ECOS all the very best with that. Thank you very much for your time today, Dato'. So, lighting up Sabah isn't just about energy access, it's also about energy justice. When equity drives our grids, we don't just power homes, we power futures. That's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. We'll see you all next week with more economic analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji, signing off for now.